Nine times out of 10, business owners don't have enough value in their business to sustain that lifestyle after they're out of their business.
So tell me a little bit about the levers that they have to pull to really increase the company value.
Most of the time, they're great operators, right? Because you don't get to be 10 or $20 million business by being a crappy operator. You know that business operations. But what usually stalls them out is they're great. They know lean manufacturing, and they know safety, and they know all the other stuff they need to do, and they've done pretty good on customer service. What they really didn't know is they've grown this whole time on a platoon of salespeople that they really live or die by how good their salespeople are.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Coffee with Closers, where business leaders share insights on how to build businesses from the ground up and best practices for innovating in their industry.
Hey, Damon, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
All right, Sam. Glad to be here.
Most certainly. Well, you're a pro. You actually host your own multiple shows live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. So this isn't anything new for you. So I'm excited to do this discussion. So obviously I came across your profile because you have a tremendous following on LinkedIn. You put out a lot of content around mergers, acquisition, how to increase company value. And you seem to have a lot to say about the subject. And obviously you built a company around this concept. But before we get to your current business and what you do and how you help entrepreneurs and business leaders, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, how you got started and how you ended up starting this new company called Exit. Exit
Yeah,
Your Way. Mm-hmm.
yeah. I started out actually. I went to school for engineering, went mechanical engineering and industrial management, and I started out in a molding company and was helping companies as an application engineer. I was able to help them design plastic products. That was really a fun part of my career because I was able to develop. I don't know how many patents I was part of, and with 3M Medical and some other Toshiba and some other big companies, and when I was in the Midwest yet. But I soon realized that while I was good at it, I really liked it. I really like to manage people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the company was fast growing. Again, there's some of it is hard work and luck. And the part was lucky is the company that I was working for was really growing. And so I don't know, it was 4 or 5 years after I was out of college, I was actually able to build and manage a facility in the Southeast. So I moved to Tennessee from South Dakota and ran that facility for 5 years. We like quintupled the sales in it, and I really learned a lot there because that was really the first facility we had that was running 24/7, and we were servicing large automotive and consumer electronics clients and a bunch of other like construction tools like Porter Cable and places like that with molded products for their products. So I was able to. I was in the Southeast for 7 years, going in different manufacturers, and I mean it was just so cool to tour all these facilities because I'm a manufacturing geek, man. At heart, when you make something, it's rewarding and it's really cool. And it doesn't matter if you're making 500 a minute like spark plugs or you're making one off Bugattis.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is just the process is such a thrill to see concept to product being done. And I realized that I really like to lead people. So it was a family owned business. I ran that facility for about 5 years, and I was where I was going to go in that family business. And that was cool. I really loved it. And I love the people there. I still talk with them there. And I was given the opportunity to run another kind of company in the Southeast there, or a business, a facility for somebody. And it was a completely different industry, but it was owned by investment owners.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a big change for me because I was exposed to knew the operational stuff. And the owners of this business, I ran that facility for about a year, and then they said, "Hey, we want you to run the company." They moved me up here in the Seattle area, and that was almost 15 plus years ago now. And I learned finance and I learned investment owned companies. And I saw the difference between how investment owned businesses were ran different than a privately held, family owned or just me owning a company kind of thing. man, it is really a different thing. And so we did a turnaround. Actually, that's why part of it was the company wasn't doing quite as good as it was, and then we actually did so well. 3 years later, we sold it, and that was the first time I'd been in a sale of a business, and I was like, wow, I really like this because we were out to acquire businesses first, and then we ended up one of the people we talked to, we actually ended up selling to them. We were going to acquire them, then we it was kind of weird, but the process of it, going through it, the diligence, the finance work, the leadership work that you have to do to transition and move and through that, I really enjoyed. And I was about 35 at the time, and I said, um, I really want to do this. I want to help companies grow and then sell and make a lot of money.
Hmm.
And it took me 15 years after that to do it, but I was running and selling. After that company, I ran, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 other companies where we were doing either just general management kind of things, running the companies, or turnarounds for investor owned businesses. And same thing, buying, selling companies, merging companies, doing those things in the lower middle market. I mean,
Hmm.
nothing $100 million kind of thing or bigger. It was always below that. But then in 2015, I was just, or in, yeah, it was 2015. I was actually, I had stopped working for companies in about 2010, and I was doing my own consulting. I like to build factories. I built a few factories for people I knew. That was always fun. And then in 2015, I reconnected with Andrew Cross, my current partner, and he had a business brokerage, and he was selling lower middle market companies in the Seattle area, and he goes, "Hey, how about we partner back up and we do this and we sell businesses?" And
Hmm.
I said, "Okay, let's do that." Well, I got into it and I was like, I do not like just the sale part of the business, because in business brokerage, investment banking, those investment bankers or business brokers do very little to help the owner really understand what my company needs to look like and what can I really do to improve my value. And maybe we should delay the sale of the business because you have to fix these things first or get your value up. And I just said, we were in about 6 months, and I said, we need to do this differently. Let's change the way that we run the business to do the consulting to help them in the business get their operations, leadership, whatever they got to do to get this right, and actually get the value of the business, a realistic value, someone they're actually going to pay you the money for, to a point that that owner is going to be happy with the money they get for the business. Then they sell the business, because otherwise we're susceptible to selling businesses like everyone else on the market, and there's only about a 25% chance of selling businesses like that. And we don't. I said, I'm not someone that plays odds like that. I always try to put the odds in my favor, and as someone that's going to be helping sell businesses, I want to sell businesses because that's when you get paid, instead of putting a bunch of businesses on the market hoping that a few will sell.
Hmm.
And that's really the genesis of how we got to Exit Your Way. It's a long story,
Hmm.
but it was fun, because
Yeah.
for me, it's 15 plus years after I really envisioned what I was going to do. We're doing it now and having a ball.
Most certainly. I mean, I think that really paint the picture of exactly why your business model is completely different from most other investment banking companies. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about the distinctions that you said about owner funded, right? Owner owned and operated a manufacturing company versus a company that's actually investment funded or investor owned. So what's that clear distinctions that you saw that has made the other one much more successful? Like, what was the owners not doing right, that the other investment funded ones that are doing better?
Yeah, it's not necessarily what they're not doing right, but
Hmm.
it's what investment owners have to do to ensure that their investors are happy and they're making the return they want. And this is where
Hmm.
business owners like me, if I've got a manufacturing business, I can run my manufacturing business out of my checkbook, and I can say, hey man, I was able to pull $500,000 or $1 million out of this last year. Everything's cool. Well, when I've got investors in that, I have to tell the investors what their return is going to be. And I have to then make sure I make that return. Well, that requires a lot more upfront, laying out a budget, projecting out the things that you're going to do. And then internally in the business, it means how are we going to get that cadence going and get our team working together, give them the goals so they understand that we have to sell this much every week. And that means we have to get this many leads and we have to be able to turn that into this much business and we have to bill this much and, of course, all the way through. That was the thing that really I saw as a difference because me as a private owner of a business, if the sales are off, but I'm okay with that, I'm okay with that. In an investor-owned business, if the sales are off, everybody's scrambling to figure out how the heck to get it there because we've told the investors that we're going to make $1 million this month, and if we make 500,000, it's not going to be good for people.
Mm-hmm. So
that's the biggest difference.
So you think you're saying the privately owned businesses don't necessarily have the drive to see the growth and sales coming. They're just comfortable where they are and not necessarily very motivated to change their way of doing business.
Oh, I think they're motivated to grow and do things. I just don't think that they do it as intentionally as investor-owned businesses because you're intentionally an investor-owned business is trying to increase profits, right? And sometimes it is a comfort thing because let's face it, first time you're going to start a manufacturing business, you're hoping to replace the income that you needed to live. Then you're past that, and now you're trying to get to the income that you don't really have to worry about money at all. And then once you're past that, then your interest and desire to grow may wane unless you really, as a private owner, really have a goal in the end. And that's what we focus on with our clients is like, listen, you're making $1 million a year right now, and your business is worth 6, 7, 8, whatever $1 million. But to retire and live like you're doing now, you may need $20 million. Or with your philanthropic desires, you may need 25 or $30 million because you want to give each of your kid a few $1,000,000. You want to drop so much for this charity, that charity. You want to buy another home in South America, whatever the heck you want to do. But we really get them focused on that because 9 times out of 10, business owners don't have enough value in their business to sustain that lifestyle after they're out of their business.
So tell me a little bit about the levers that they have to pull to really increase the company value.
Most of the time they're great operators, right? Because you don't get to be 10 or $20 million business by being a crappy operator. You know that business operations. But what usually stalls them out is they're great. They know lean manufacturing and they know safety and they know all the other stuff they need to do. And they've done pretty good on customer service. What they really didn't know is they've grown this whole time on a platoon of salespeople that they really live or die by how good their salespeople are. And that's where this is really changing. And in the last 10 years, especially, it's just overnight changes. And the COVID, just exponentially changed it. But what we really see is they've not developed the marketing, the systems. And I'm not just saying marketing to say marketing. I'm saying it because marketing gives you a system, if you do it right in B2B, that allows you to get the right people aware of your company, get them familiar with your company, and then give them an easy way to start to engage with you if you're a good fit for them. Because the other thing that's happened over the last 15 years is the demographics of the buyers have changed. 15, 20 years ago, there were a lot of digital nomads, meaning people that grew up in the analog age, me, right? Now, most of the people that are making buying decisions in manufacturing or other industrial spaces are digital or digital immigrants, is what I want to say. And these are native digital people that are making the buying decisions now. They grew up with Google. They want to search. They want to be able to see about your company. They don't want to go to your manufacturing space as a contract CNC assembly kitting company, and they don't want to see how many machines you got and cool photos of your facility. Maybe they want to see a photo of your facility, but they want to see how you can solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem I solve? How do I solve it? Who do I solve this for? And why the heck should I talk to you more? Or what's some more information to answer a question? Whatever it is, your industry. But that is
Mm-hmm.
so key now because of the change in buyers that these manufacturers, and it can be, like I said, it can be 20, it can be $30 million, $50 million that the salespeople have done a great job. But what you're losing out every day that you don't know is that your competitor across the country, if you're a US based type of competitors, or around the world, if you're global, can now increase their marketing and take market share from you. And you don't feel it. You don't feel it because it's chunking away at those little opportunities for you to grow your revenues today. And you miss those. You just miss them because you're not out there actively developing those inbound and interested people in your company.
Yeah, the common objection I hear when I talk to manufacturing, especially the owner-owned and operated manufacturing companies, like, hey, we're in a niche industry. There's not a lot of people that do what we do. Our customers know us. We've been doing business with them for the last 30 years. My dad started this, for 50 years ago. I've been in this same chair for the last 20 some years. This is our story, and no one, everybody knows in our space. What do you tell those manufacturing founders, and what could they do to actually implement what you just described in terms of not relying heavily on the salespeople to bring in the business, but actually have a system that drives them consistent flow of new customers?
Well, I think first of all, I still believe that there is a place for that salesperson in manufacturing. I'm not saying that you're going to get away from salespeople altogether, because salespeople, with the right marketing, salespeople get to sell. Salespeople get to build a relationship. I'm saying prior to any relationship building now, and this is a thing I say, I'd look at them across the desk and say, you and I, because they're probably above 50, I'll just say that. And I'd say, we're digital immigrants. We're not digital natives. We're selling to digital natives. We don't act like us. We have to act like them. And to get like them, they go 70+% of the way due to the buying journey before they want to talk to somebody. That's when your salespeople take over. We have to give them that 70% digitally, whatever way they want it, wherever they're at, ahead of time, so that we can get our salespeople involved in this. And that's what I say. And the other thing I'll say, how many times have you lost an account because one of the people in your customers retired?
Mm-hmm.
And a new person took it over? That's happening every single minute of every single day. Mm-hmm. Because as those digital immigrants retire out of those companies that were buying, and the digital natives come in and they want to, put their mark on their business because they're the buyers or the people that are specifying, you got to be in front of them.
Yeah. So, I think what you're describing is exactly what I've seen happen, because the loyalty that was there from the earlier procurement manager, who's probably in that same seat for 25, 30 years, they built that relationship, and they feel like they're they're letting that other vendor down if they switch the vendor and they stick with them. And, and they negotiate, and, maybe it would take 3% increase every year, but they still kept that customer, that vendor happy. And the customer, the vendor also feels like they're keeping that customer happy. But that relationship-based model, yes, there is still relationship with the digital and native people, but they're short-lived. At least from my perspective and what I observed.
And the relationship is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a digital immigrant, say like myself, they're probably not going to be active on LinkedIn, but your buyer could be very active. Your buyer could be very active on an Instagram. Your buyer might be, you just don't know. It's a completely different thing. Your buyer might be active in the trade associations where you need to be to be active now. And I'm talking in digitally. I don't mean necessarily hitting every trade show, but those kind of things. You need to know your buyers well enough, your customers well enough to have your salespeople in those same places to keep those relationships. Because just like that person that was in there buying for you for 25 years, They had their certain preferences. It's a whole different set of preferences for the new people coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions that I have that I need to ask you, because I think what you're describing is you got to figure out a way to get in front of your prospective customer, educate them, get them to know that you exist, and figure out a way to get them to come to you and then inquire about how you can solve their need. And now the salesperson is in the control seat, at the power seat, because they came to you, as opposed to you knocking on the door and say, hey, would you like to switch your vendor? I'll do 3% cheaper than the other guy. And it's a price war versus your more of a value conversation.
Exactly. If you can, and you can, there's a billion people that say this a million different ways, is your unique value. And this is where Kurt Anderson, a guy I do a bunch of lives with, he says niche down until it hurts. If I'm a CNC contract CNC machining company, if you're to say, hey, I'm a contract CNC machining company and I can machine metal, you're dead in the water. You got to really go, I'm a contract CNC machining company that machines hard metal alloys for precision injection molding tooling for the automotive industry, something like that. You really have to niche down and know your customer and understand that, because then you can have conversations around it. You show your value, and exactly, people will come to you because now I'm that precision injection mold company that needs someone in the industry, and they're looking at you because you've shown your expertise. Mm-hmm. They've seen the videos, they've watched your case studies, whatever it is, and looked at it, and they think you could help us. So now show us what you think. Mm-hmm. It's such a different conversation. It's a completely different conversation. Your salespeople can do what they really should be doing, is explaining how I can solve your problem, rather than not, do you have a problem I can solve? That's already mostly decided. There is a problem here that you can probably help me with. Your salespeople get to close. Mm-hmm. They get to do what they love most. I just think that it makes salespeople more effective because they're put in front of people that actually have an interest in talking to them.
Yeah. And this is more of a one-to-many sales strategy more than a one-to-one strategy, because if you have a system like this that's bringing you prospective customers, that machine is running 24/7, not a sales rep that might only be able to work a certain number of hours in a given day for a certain number of months.
100%. Because, it's as simple as, hey, I'm on the Pacific time. People are on the East Coast. They might want to, and if I'm global, even if I'm selling into Europe, that's 8 hours. For me, it's, what the heck is it, 11 hours ahead, something like that, 11, 12 hours ahead, whatever is it? No, it's 8 hours ahead. But, these time differences, the global time differences go away when you have this kind of machine working for you. And you look at how many people are selling globally now, and a lot. Or if they aren't, this kind of thing can surely get you global.
Yeah. I mean, especially with these logistical nightmares that we're dealing with, people wanting to do more, domestic things too. They probably don't want to go. They've probably been dealing with China and foreign countries. They actually are looking more proactively in the US to source it, pay a little bit extra for the guarantee of delivery, as opposed to, oh, I hope someday I will get that raw material or whatever the parts or products that I need.
Yeah, the reshoring of manufacturing in the U.S. is real. That's for sure. We learned and I think it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, and not only is it even makes you getting out with the information we're talking about ahead of your salespeople, to allow those potential customers to really know you and understand how the problems you solve and how you might help them, is so much more important, because your opportunities are increasing every day and somebody else is doing it right now.
Yeah. And I think the part of the challenge is many of these manufacturing founders and CEOs looking at the competitors. Many of them may not be very active. They make their decision on investing into what you're describing based on the fact that my competitor isn't doing anything. But what do you say to those manufacturing CEOs? What are your, what would you say? Hey, well, my competitors are not doing, they all have ugly websites. They're not producing any blogs. They don't create videos. They don't do webinars. Why should I spend money?
First of all, I would doubt that they know their competitors, because they know the few people that they've been exposed to. But the competitor that's going to kill you, you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know. They could be 500 miles away from you in a little town. They're scrappy. They've decided that they are going to do this. It could be a startup. For goodness sakes, how many startups have killed big companies just because they did it differently? I mean, who would have thought a company like Uber was going to just decimate the taxi cabs industry in the U.S. and it was going to go globally? I mean, who would have thought that? Who would have thought how much Airbnb would affect the travel and hotel industry and those kind of things? These people are out there doing this, right? I saw the other day a website for a sheet metal fabrication company in the US that said, send us your DXF and we'll give you an immediate quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How big a deal is that for every other person that can't do that in sheet metal fabrication?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they might not get the 10 million piece order from this big production company, but if they're getting these orders from all these other people, low volume, high margin, they can build a hell of a business off this if they've got an engine that just pumps out those quotes for them.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff you don't know your competitor. That's back to that question. You probably don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen Form Labs. I don't know if you've seen that company. Form Labs is very active. They do a lot of 3D printing and additive manufacturing and everything else. They spend a lot of money on digital advertising. I see them on YouTube ads and things like that. I think Xemetry or something. There's another company that I've seen in the metal finishing, metal fabrication, which is also doing a great job in terms of marketing themselves. And I've also been on B2B websites that are manufacturing with guided quote request forms where you can start like a virtual quote request. Basically, you guide them through the quote request process.
Oh, configurator,
yeah, exactly. So it's extremely, you're hand holding that prospect through that process and make them decide for themselves what they want, and then submit the quote request, and then get a much more accurate estimate back to them, as opposed to go through 70 emails back and forth about whatever that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a great example, and it's a great way that you can even your marketing can take things all the way so much farther down the path, right? Even if you gave somebody the option to go, okay, here's a quote on our standard item that's like that. If it makes sense, let's schedule a conversation with a salesperson to look at a custom item. There's so many ways that you can do this that really maximizes the value of your salespeople and the spend that you're doing in the marketing to help people get what they want faster.
Yeah, and I think the misconception that I've seen with manufacturing CEOs or senior leadership who's responsible for growth is oftentimes they think, oh, my customers are relationship based. They need to have a conversation. Our product are very custom. We work with a niche market. Our customers don't buy like that. But I think that what you're saying is that is changing drastically. That old way of dealing with your prospective customer has evolved, is essentially the truth.
Yes. And again, if you're sitting there, because a lot of manufacturers have a handful of customers, right? You can build a $50 million business on 3 customers. Easy. And the thing that happens is if your big one or your big 2 go because of something, a retirement of somebody or something else, if you're not keeping your pipeline full of new potentials, you're in trouble. And this whole thing, when we talk about risk and risk to your business, it's okay today and you can run your business like that, but long term, that risk is going to bite you. It will hit you. And you're going to lessen the chance of it if you're really attractive to a new person coming in and they go, oh yeah, your salespeople, even in that transition situation, say Susan's retiring and Jim's taking over. Well, Jim's 20 years younger, 25 years younger, and say, yeah, Jim, you can go on and this is crazy because it probably wouldn't happen, but Jim, you can go on TikTok and you can learn about, we got all of our machines. We show you what we do kind of on there on TikTok, or you can go on YouTube and see how we do it. If you ever need a quote this is our process. You can look online and kind of walk yourself through. And it works on the phone too. So if you want to look on phone, blah, 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 so you really are meeting that customer again, where that customer, because we're talking about, this is a big customer, don't want to lose them. But in this transition, I'm going to I got a much higher chance of losing them if I don't resonate with that new person that took over today. And that new person is going to be significantly younger.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, aligning your buyers, the sales process to the buyer's, buying process as well is extremely critical. So let's talk about a little bit about transparency and visibility into some of these metrics that you're talking about, because at the end of the day, in order to create value and show that this company is worthwhile, a buyer has to come and see, well, it's one thing to build a system to drive the leads and have a good process to be able to get customers to come to you consistently. But how do you show that to a buyer? Or if you're thinking about selling, what are some ways that you would prepare the business to be able to do that sort of reporting?
Yeah, well, for us, one of the things that we do, and we learned it when we were running investor-owned companies, is you need to be tracking your sales pipeline, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of manufacturers, I mean, they track backlog because they have orders, but that's it. And you can run a business like that if you want, because we got so much out and quoted, or they may keep how much they've got quoted. But really, if you don't know how many people are coming in that are inquiring about your services you haven't quoted yet, and then how many people have actually quoted, and how many of those quotes that you quoted turned into business, and then yes, your backlog and all the way through your business, you don't really know. And that what you do is usually in the companies we work with, and this goes back again to the investor-owned companies. Weekly, we have management meetings with the leadership team. Could be 2 people, could be 5, 6 people, but it's the executive leaders of sales, marketing, operations, HR, finance. And you go, okay, you look through your KPIs for the business. How does our sales look? How do our operations look? How does the finance look? And that's what you have to do. And sales is not just backlog. Sales is how many new leads came into our funnel, or whatever the heck you want to call it. How many people got quote requests out or have quote requests to be received. The steps, but there's steps in that, just like in the back where you're manufacturing stuff. There are steps in that process. You got to treat your sales process like that and measure it like that. When you do that, you can show the buyer of your business, which again is going to be 15 or 20 years younger than you, or if you're selling to an investor owner, is going to be looking to see how to buy a low risk business. When you have that and you can predict far ahead of any change in sales, that we're either bringing enough leads in that'll turn into sales or not, 2 or 3 months ahead of the time when it's going to affect revenue, that's a much less risky business. And that's what investor buyers are really good at recognizing risk, and they'll run in a second. So the people that take the time to set this up have much higher valuations, and which is even more important, I think, is the ability to get a deal done.
Because you're showing to them, what this company could. It's basically you have a working machine that they can look at. Like, hey, here's how the leads are coming in. Here's how many are expected to turn into an opportunity, and this is how many we're expecting to close. Here's how many are in the pipeline that needs to go into production. Here's how many are backlogged. All that is in a very visual manner. So my question is then in terms of basically, if you have to build something like this from foundationally and have some baseline metrics and have a machine that is running like the way we described this consistent flowing business, what do companies have to even think about investing for a program like this?
It really depends on their company. It could be as simple as, hey, marketing well. What does it cost to get a system in place that can bring those people to you, develop the content, and then get that working? And that can be, a little bit of money. It can be a lot of money. It really depends upon what you need to do that. Internally, again, it can be as simple as, someone that's, your general manager, your COO, whatever it is, and their team, they can head up most of this of the KPI kind of work for you, or your finance team, whoever handles that kind of data to get it for you on a weekly basis. It doesn't have to cost a lot. Yes, you can have it all automated. Yes, you can have, I've been in companies where they wanted to spend tens of thousands of dollars to do just the visual dashboard that you use every week.
Mm-hmm.
And you can spend $100,000 on that easy. And just like you can spend $500,000 on your marketing efforts up to this point too. But you look at what's reasonable for your business and you build it out, because as long as it's effective and it's driving the amount of leads that you want to keep your business on the growth path that you're projecting, and you're able to measure and make decisions based off the information, that's really all it has to do. And you have to be able to articulate it simply for people internally and then for that business buyer. Because if you can't do it, if it's not simple and it's not effective and easy to understand, you won't be able to get your people inside to really understand and utilize it, or a business buyer to understand it and realize the value.
And how have you seen the value of a company evolve, or in terms of multiples or something, like somebody who actually had this system that drives customers, have visibility, can predict what the future is going to look like from a sales and marketing standpoint, a company's value of such a company versus somebody who had no idea. They're doing paper codes, they're sending it through PowerPoint, Microsoft Word document, and they have a job ticket in the back for production backlog, and they know how many jobs are in the job tickets. What have you seen in terms of the valuation difference?
Well, two places it really hits. So valuation difference, I don't know. It affects your value. I mean, it could increase your value of a business by a multiple. When I say that, if I'm making $5 million in EBITDA a year, businesses are valued based on a multiple of that $5 million EBITDA. It could make a $5 million a multiple difference, 0 to a multiple difference on that pretty easily. But what you really see, this is even more valuable to that business, the business owner today and the business owner in the future, is we can now adjust that front end process and go, we're not getting enough leads. Let's work on getting more leads, because I can grow faster. And if I'm measuring this all the way through, I can grow faster. I can see my leads coming in faster. I can see that we're still converting them at a good rate. And I can see that we're still invoicing and collecting money and everything else that drives bottom line profits up faster. Because what it'll do more than the value increase, because most of the value increase is that you're going to get a deal done. And you're going to get a half, like I said, half to a 1 multiple. But what you'll do is you'll grow, you sometimes 4 or 5x over what you did the year before, just by having that ability to look at what's out ahead of us. Is it good enough or not? And make those adjustments far ahead of where it's hurting the cash flow of the business, right? And that's where we really see, when you start to measure these things and utilize them and put them in place, and let the teams do what they're good at, right? Let the teams that are marketing go, hey, open the floodgates. And if you got 100 leads last week, and we would really like to have 500, how do we get to 200? How do we get to 500? Let them do what they're good at. Let them keep getting more quality leads to you. And then let the next group how do we get those leads through that? I mean, the coordination and the teamwork that you see by having these weekly meetings, and the coordination of the metrics and everything, the growth is where we really see the improvement. And working together, it's like you get these well-oiled machines, and man, then they take over markets.
Yeah. I mean, I think they manufacturing CEOs understand the importance of having machines in the back that runs without any flaws, but they just don't have that in the sales and marketing side. So what would you tell to a CEO that's on the fence, understand that this is important, but they don't want to take action? I mean, they feel like, my competition is doing anything. I don't have to do anything. I'm not planning on selling anytime soon. My kids are going to take it over sometime in the future. I don't care about selling. What do you tell the guy?
Let's see. I would say, first of all, someone down the street is doing it from you, or in the next state, and your children won't have a business to come to for very long if you don't do it. We can poo-poo whatever we want. We can say what we can, but we can't change the way society and business is changing. Uh, and I don't care what company you are. Google can't.
Mm-hmm.
Google can't. You're sure not going to. And this is part of business. It's part of business. It's not part of business in your time. And you can not choose not to deal with it in your time, but your children will have to deal with it. And that's the way it is. And if you want to turn over the best business to them, it's start this. Talk to a lot of people about it. It's not something you can turn over to your high school kid to post a few pictures on whatever, or run a video here and there. I mean, this marketing now for manufacturers is a well thought out strategy that includes web and social and everything else, with an overarching understanding of what the heck are we trying to tell our perfect potential customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you got to go. And
Yeah.
it'll help your business today, even if you don't want to do any of the digital stuff. Just figure out who the heck your customer is, and what should everything we do say. How should we talk to them?
Yeah, and I think manufacturing companies spend a lot of money on trade shows and traditional mediums, but they underinvest into these sort of digital medium to attract their customers. So the couple of minutes that I have remaining, I just want to ask some quick questions about you. So tell us a little bit about some of your productivity hacks. What do you do to get a lot of things done? I know you do. I think you have 2 different podcasts. You're, being an entrepreneur, running a company, and all the other responsibilities that come along as a founder. How do you find time to do all this? What are some of your productivity hacks?
Well, it's you go back to some of the same systems we use in business. And, you look at in EOS, they talk about elevate and delegate. I mean, you got to really think, today I'm doing this, but next year I probably am not going to be able to do that. As in my case, I do a lot of live streams, but what I do is I show up like this and I'll talk on a live stream, and I don't touch anything after that. The other people help us with the post-production. Other people help us with the research on guests, things like that, all that kind of thing. And internally, it's automation. And if you look at what things like robotic process automation, or even in marketing, like a HubSpot can do to keep you on task, and all these other things you can do. I haven't run without a task manager for 25 years. I mean, I'm not thinking about what I need to do today. I know what I need to do today, and I get the most important things done first. Mm-hmm. And anything that's not my highest value, I try to get somebody else to do it. It's the only way you can, and it allows you to actually think about your business rather than work in your business all the time.
Mm-hmm. So knowing what you know today, what advice would you give your younger self?
Start doing that faster. I mean, I'm a technician. I like doing the kind of work we do, but my highest value is not necessarily doing that work every day. It's coordinating others to get that work done and making sure that the whole process is working and everything else is happening. But I would go back and say, work on getting yourself out of that work as fast as you can.
Awesome. Well, Damon, I certainly enjoyed our conversation. I wish I had more time to dig a little deeper on some of these other topics. Thank you so much for sparing your time with us.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.